She is married to Minister Bonney-Richardson and the mother of three daughters, Victoria, Venterica, and Valerie. She is the grandmother of Dallas, Dylan, and Kimberly. She is the niece of Vera Hardy and Dorothy Clark. And she's the oldest of her two sisters, Myra Rutledge and Sarah Bonney. Myra is a graduate of Mulberry High School and lived in a little town called Pierce, continuing her education by receiving a bachelor's degree at the University of South Florida in Tampa. Then her master's degree from National Louis University in leadership and education. Now she's a candidate pursuing her doctorate in the doctoral program at National Louis University. Myra is the principal of Medela Elementary. She received many awards while living in Texas over 12 years. She is a virtuous woman who is a believer and doer in the vineyard of Christ. That's what I'm proud of. May I present to some and introduce to others my daughter, Myra Anissa Bonney-Richardson. I don't know if I can live up to that introduction.
It's not the speaker.
Giving honor to Dr. Gardner, and I know her as Ms. Robin. When I left and came back, she was Dr. Gardner, and I am so thankful to her for calling me and inviting me to speak on this program. It is truly an honor. I am honored to be here tonight, and I do not take it lightly, nor do I take it for granted. I want to give honor to this fabulous sorority, Phi Delta Kappa. I want to thank my mother for not only telling me about education, but showing me how important education really is. And I want to thank God, who's first in my life, for preparing me and choosing me for such a time as this. When Dr. Gardner called me, she said, I need you to speak on the program. I said, okay, what's the occasion? She said, Black History. I said, all right, what's the theme? She said, that is the theme. Black history. I said, all right. Lord, what you want me to say? Just, okay, if that's the theme, we're gonna go with it. And so, if you'll allow me to make an analogy, if we are the tree today, our ancestors are the roots. And if you know anything about trees, roots give you life. So I don't take it for granted that I'm here today. But Black history is not about the people you read about in those books. Now, I will tell you, I'm not discounting anything they've done, and they were very instrumental in our history. But Black history is really about the bridges that carried you across. And so today I'm going to tell you a little bit about the bridges that carried me across. No, I'm not going to tell you about Madam C.J. Walker. You already know she was the first Black female millionaire. I'm not going to tell you about Dr. King. He was a great pastor, great leader. He sparked the civil rights movement. And I'm not going to tell you about Rosa Parks. She got tired, and she stayed in her seat and started the Montgomery boycott on the bus. They were very significant. But what I'm going to tell you about didn't come from a book, but it is Black history. So I said, you know Madam C.J. Walker, but did you know Madam Johnny Jean Barnes? Miss Barnes came from humble beginnings, or so they tell me. The truth of the matter is, I don't know about her beginnings, but I know about my beginnings with her. What I will tell you is that every time I showed up at St. Paul and Miss Johnny Jean Barnes was there, she was sharp as a tack, clean from hat to heels, and she smelled good. What I didn't realize then was Miss Barnes was one of the first female Black educated women that lived in our neighborhood. And I knew one thing, she was sharp. and education mattered to her. And if you wanted to be on any part of her program, you had to come with it. And if you went to her Sunday school class, you were going to read. And wasn't no sense in crying, because after you finished crying, you was going to still read. Because education was important. She valued it. And she didn't take no for an answer. So excellence was not an option to Madam Johnny Jean Bonds. Black history is not about what you read in a book. It's about what we've lived. So again, I say I'm not going to tell you about Dr. Martin Luther King, who was an honorable Christian man and a great orator. But I don't know if you've ever heard of a man named Austin Baker. Mr. Austin Baker was the greatest orator I've ever had the privilege of knowing. Ever had the privilege of knowing. I'm telling you, he could have written for Martin Luther King and some presidents, if you ask me. Mr. Baker would walk to a podium and command it, but it was going to take him about 5 minutes to get there. And when he got there, he wasn't going to rush what he had to say. Mr. Baker was one of our treasures. When he got to the podium, it didn't matter if it was Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas, Easter, a funeral, a wedding, watch night, etc. It did not matter. He had a word to say. Not only did he memorize poems a mile long, he even wrote some. Mr. Baker was an amazing orator. He was an honorable man. He was a Christian man. He was my Black history. And before I tell you about Rosa Parks, or make an analogy towards Rosa Parks, I want to give honor to a few educators who had a hand in creating the person that I've become. I want to tell you about Carolyn Tot Simmons, my 5th grade teacher. When I was struggling to read, she didn't give up on me. I was that Title I reader who just couldn't quite get it. When I sat in her small group, it wasn't an option for me to read. And if I looked like I wanted to fix myself to suck my teeth, she would look over her glasses, tighten up her lips, and say, "Try me." I know your mama and your daddy. Let's try me. So I didn't try her. I also had a 6th grade math teacher, may she rest in peace, Miss Sandra Brown, who realized that my love of math was going to take me far. So she challenged me, not only by giving me on grade level work, but she exceeded what she thought I could do. She added words to my problems, because the regular problems, I just breezed through. So she knew I struggled with reading. So she bumped it up a notch. She differentiated before we even knew what differentiation was all about. Miss Sandra Brown. Also, Miss Mamie Moore was my 7th grade science teacher. She had a way of making science fun. I loved Miss Moore's class, but I hated science, and she knew it. But she told me, "Girl, before you leave this class, you're going to know every bone in the body." And she didn't lie. Before we left her class, we knew every bone in the body. It was a part of our final exam. I loved her class. You see, they are my Black history. Finally, Miss Rosa Parks. I'm not going to tell you about how she got tired on that bus and sat in her seat and started the Montgomery boycott. No, I'm going to tell you about Rosa and Park. Rosa and Park Bonney. They were a beautiful young couple. They had a little bit of money and a whole lot of dreams. Well, Park didn't live a healthy life, so he lost it very young. He was about 37 years old when he passed away, which left my mother a single mother, raising 2 children on her own. She worked hard every day. I watched her cook, clean, make a way, extracurricular activities. She never made excuses. She just did what she had to do. So she worked hard. She went to State Farm, and she watched her Caucasian counterparts get the job she knew she was qualified to do. So what did she do? Rosa went back to school. I watched her go back to school. I watched her get up early. I watched her go to bed late. I watched her deny herself her Saturdays and Sundays just to make a way for us. She did that on a regular basis, week in, week out, year after year, until she claimed what was rightfully hers. She claimed her degree. So she earned her promotion. She earned her degree. And she earned, most importantly, a whole lot of respect. You see, she's my Black history. My name is Myra Bonney-Richardson. I am the daughter of Rosa and Park. I am the first Black female principal of Medela Elementary. I'm doing my best to be Black history. Thank you and good evening.